this incident happened last week, and in time that America going through their Islamophobia and Black Lives Matter movement and incidents of racist and emboldened by a white nationalist in the White House, we see a lot of incidents of racism and Islamophobia, anti-immigrants all over the nation. So, Sophia Rashid, thank you so much for giving us the time. I can imagine what you've gone through in the last few days.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I definitely didn't expect it to, my story to get as much traction as it did. I certainly didn't expect, what happened on Saturday to happen as well. So yeah, it's just kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind.
You were in restaurants, those gangs, groups, they were aggressive, they approached your family, but anyway, were under threat or been threatened. Am I correct?
So, it's been stated over and over again that I was uncomfortable from the police reports to news outlets. And I very specifically said over and over that I was terrified. I was scared for my life, for the life of my daughter, and the lives of any, person who is visibly a minority in Stillwater. My family comes from a small town, and I know what groups like this do. I know who they are.
You didn't know who they are?
No, I meant white supremacist groups.
I see.
When you see Aryan Brotherhood, someone ascribing to be from the Aryan Brotherhood, you know what that.
And I'm sorry to laugh, but when you asked her, I found this question is very strange that you're comparing a racist,
Right.
dress to an Islamic dress, whatever that might think. This is a major structural issue in this country for 300 years. And it's unfortunate that you were experiencing that day with your family. But how the media, that false sense of balance and the way she handled his hand and she does that.
Modern, media, widely accepted media, she did a very good job. She did a very professional job. She did nothing wrong. And I think that's the issue, is that media today is seeking out this, objectivity. It's kind of like, I found it kind of comparative to in a debate between actual scientists, or you have actual scientists in a debate, and then you bring forward an equal number of climate change deniers or flat earthers, who say we're scientists too. It's just you can't have that type of objectivity when one is clearly incorrect. So I'm a Muslim. This is the dress of someone who is Muslim. To equate it with someone who adheres to horrible, inherently violent, inherently awful views and an ideology, is just a little bit obscene. And it's that underlying current of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism that we have in our media and in our country at large.
We're a bit surprised about the setting of the mosque, where bags
right.
places, and the camera angle is very casual, very disconsidered to the
right.
and to the interview. So how did that happen?
Right. I kind of want to add that it definitely felt, when I eventually saw the interview, and I kind of reflected on it, that there was kind of an attempt to, I don't want to say exactly exotify, but the controversialness that they said at the beginning of the interview or the beginning of the story, that I was part of that controversy, that my identity was part of that controversy. I was making it controversial by being and looking like who I was. And I found it very interesting that they wanted to take footage of me walking, you know, as if to kind of show my outfit as a whole, you know, what I would look like when walking down the street. And then, you know, inside the masjid, the mosque, there initially they had asked, or they said, do you want to do it in like the men's side of the masjid, that the men's prayer room? And I was kind of like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And just for anyone who's maybe not Muslim watching, like the cultural context to that is that out of respect for both genders, not a segregation, one is better than the other, we have two sides of the masjid typically. Sometimes it's in one room, but there's always kind of two sides.
Whatever saying the masjid.
I guess the reason I kind of want to emphasize that is that, like you're saying, she is a journalist for 20 years, and the Muslims have been in the community for well beyond that. It seemed like that was, again, kind of an exotic, you know, that would add to the exoticness, the controversialness, right? The polarization of the story, to have that mosque background. And it was like, it was at a certain time, it was one of our prayers, and I was just kind of surprised by that. And I'm like, no, we can't do that there. That's, in my mind, I'm like, that's really disrespectful to the religious space that we're in. And so we
Ted Kozlowski from the mayor of Stillwater. He has a very lovely letter, and he wrote back and he welcomed you back. And I mean, Stillwater is a tourist town, you know.
He understands the gravity of that situation. He understands the implication of having people like the Aryan Cowboy Brotherhood walking around, shouting comments at people, getting in people's faces, you know, people that the ideology that they cling to says they want to murder, you know.
Yeah.
He does understand that. Going forward, it's my hope that both him as a leader and the citizens of Stillwater decide not to just let this slide by as a one-off incident that, you know, made a lot of noise and then kind of fell into the background. I'm really hoping that they decide to put forward policies and resolutions as a community that, yes, anyone's free to express whatever view they want. That does not mean that people are going to accept it. And just educating the business owners there. You're welcome.
You know, I go to a coffee shop in Northeast called the Mojo Coffee Gallery. You know, it's in this California art buildings. I know that. And it's for us as a minority or immigrants, we feel very comfortable there. And
Mojo for the exact same reason when I was
really?
in Northeast Minneapolis, like a week ago.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I felt, is that I was looking, because it was still very fresh in my mind. My cat was getting surgery around there.
Yeah.
And I specifically went to Mojo because I did feel like it was a safe space. And especially like a week ago, I'm still looking over my shoulder constantly because of the threats I've gotten online. And yeah, like they're definitely, there's places where me as minorities feel welcome. And then there's places we kind of know, even as a community, we're not welcome. And that's what I really realized on Saturday, where I'm like, you know, the first response when I told, you know, my husband what happened, he was with a group of brothers. They were like, Stillwater? Why did you go to Stillwater? Like, don't you know that we don't belong there?
No.
And that kind of that got me thinking.
Yeah.
So I started to kind of poke around, and I'm connected with a lot of young sisters in the community. And I asked them, you know, their ages ranging from like 15 to in their 20s. I said, have you ever gone to a small town just for fun, just for a day, by yourself, with friends, with family? Every single one of them were like, no way. No way.
Yeah.
So as a community, we know that there are places that are much less safe for us.
As a white convert, that you choose Islam for whatever reason in your life is, and you choose niqab, you lost your white privilege by converting to Islam, not so much, but also by wearing the niqab. Were you
I
aware
think
of
it
that?
changed. It changed. So I don't think I lost, I converted when I was 17. I don't think I just lost 17 years of solid white privilege. I kept those 17 years with me, which is what made me feel confident and safe for the most part going into Stillwater when the most of my community doesn't. It's because I've been to Stillwater before. I grew up going there. I still get that. I think one of the more powerful bits of white privilege is this confidence of being safe, of being free to say what you want, do what you want, participate in activities, and not being hurt. And to give an idea of how strong white privilege is, even though I wear a niqab, even though I've been Muslim for 7.5 years, it's still a learning process for me to realize how other white people see me, and not all white people, but a lot of white people see me. It's still shocking to me. I'm still unlearning a lot of that white mentality of my own whiteness, if that makes sense. So Stillwater for me was incredibly surprising, where frankly in the Muslim community, the outrage has not been so much in the Muslim community. We're upset about it, but they're like, oh yeah, like it's not surprising, sadly. We experience so much of this that's not surprising. It's the white people that are so surprised and outraged for the most part. Because they're like, what? This doesn't happen. It's actually pretty common for us, just in not normally so overt. But yeah, I definitely, it's an interesting place to be in, having one foot kind of both sides, because I know what it's like to experience Minnesota as a white person, and it's really, it's beautiful. And now I know what it's like to experience Minnesota as someone who's not typically seen as a white person, and it's horrifying a lot of the times.
Sophia, everybody's wearing a mask these days. I mean, the reporter is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was surprised for a Muslim woman wearing a hijab. Actually, Trump was start wearing a mask now. Everybody looks Muslim in a way. So we are in a very strange time for
A little bit, yeah.
this to be a major issue, and somebody is choosing to wear a certain way based on their religious beliefs, be compared to a group of people made the conscious decisions to wear dresses that symbolize racism and criminal activities, and the idea of this fake objectivity, fake every story has two sides. I think they teach you them in journalism school, and everybody always look at the other side. I don't know why you should look at the other side when one side obviously in the wrong. So thank you for that, Sophia, and say salamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.